Look today, most of the Christian nations today, yes, the fornication, the adultery, even the rapes, even the crimes, they basically lead in all of these statistics out there. These are majority Christian nations. Even the wars, even the manufacture of arms to cause more wars, to cause more suffering, they are basically at the top of the list. How can you say that you have seen all of Christianity and you still think it's good?
We're all guilty of the law, because if you break one law, you break the whole law.
Where does it say that in the Bible? Show me. You know, there are many things that Christians just make up, because that's what they've been taught in their Bible, in the churches, unfortunately. Jesus said, anyone who changes even a jot, like even a dot, is called the least in the kingdom of heaven. Mr. Paul changes so many things. The dietary laws, I already mentioned circumcision, right? You know, Jesus never ate pork because it was for him forbidden, based on the law, the Mosaic law which he followed. How is it possible for someone like Paul to come along and say, it's okay to eat anything and everything?
But again, that's because it's part of the Old Testament. That was under the Old Testament.
No, I said in the New Testament time, Jesus did not tell anyone to go, you can go and eat pork, or I will eat pork. But Jesus came like 12 to 1400 years after Moses. Yes? More than a millennia, like nearly a millennia and a half. But yet he's abiding by that law of Moses. But not Paul. In fact, he was summoned at the Jerusalem Council. This is in the book of Acts.
Yeah.
And he had to take the Nazareth vow, which includes sacrificing animals. Do you know that? Because according to you guys, there's no more sacrifices after the sacrifice of Jesus.
Because he paid with his blood.
Yeah, but Paul was asked, he was literally asked to do the sacrifice of an animal, because that's what's included in the Nazareth vow.
Yeah, but he didn't mean anything, because he
already... What do you mean didn't mean anything? Sacrifice doesn't mean anything?
No, so when you sacrifice, it's for the remission of sins, just like in the old covenant. That's why God won his people.
So why is Paul still sacrificing after Jesus' sacrifice?
When Paul sacrificed an animal, it was for the people watching, for part of the Jewish covenant.
No. The Nazareth vow, okay, part of it, for the atonement of sin, includes sacrificing the animal.
You had faith in Jesus Christ already.
That doesn't answer my question, does it? If there are no more sacrifices after Jesus, then the proof is with Paul doing the sacrifice after Jesus. So number one, we don't yet know whether this book is from God. All I see is claims from Christians. See what I mean?
Well,
I don't know if you were listening to the earlier discussion.
I was.
Yeah, so Jesus, do you think Jesus is literally cursed by God in the Bible?
I heard that.
Did you just say yes?
Yes.
You actually believe that? Wow. In the Old Testament, if you read Ezekiel, it says the Father is not accountable for the sin of the Son, and the Son is not accountable for the sin of the Father. Yes?
Yes.
And then it goes on to say that the righteousness of the righteous is with the righteous, and the wickedness of the wicked is with the wicked. But if a wicked turns away and returns to God, that means he basically seeks forgiveness and he repents for his sins, then it is as if his sins are never remembered. So this concept of forgiveness without anyone dying, either an animal or a human, was there even in the Old Testament. So why then in the New Testament does God require a blood sacrifice of a completely innocent man? Makes no sense.
That's the whole point.
Say again?
That's the whole point.
What do you mean that's the whole point? Injustice? How can injustice be the whole point of God, who is always just?
It's because of our injustice. Because nobody's perfect except for Jesus.
God doesn't expect us to be perfect. That's why he asks us to seek forgiveness.
Well, then if he doesn't expect us to be perfect, how come he wrote the Old Testament, the Old Covenant law?
Where in the Old Testament does it say you have to be perfect to enter paradise?
It doesn't say anything about it at all.
Exactly. So the perfection is not a demand from God. It is something that I think the Christians invented themselves. That we need to be perfect to be with God. No, that's not from a teaching of any of the prophets.
The thing is that the Old Testament doesn't mention anything about entering heaven at all. In fact, I don't even really mention the heavens.
I'm talking about the New Testament, where this sacrifice of a human is demanded. Why does God require blood to forgive you? That too of an innocent man. By the way, this is a human sacrifice. Do you realize that? And human sacrifice was a hallmark of all pagans. The Aztecs, the Incas, the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Hindus as well. Look at any pagan religion which either worships stones or worships multiple gods or any sort of paganism. One of the core ways to please a god was human sacrifice.
Well, that's because Jesus Christ.
In Islam, we don't have this concept of sacrificing an animal or a human to atone for your sins.
Well, that's because Jesus Christ, he was a lamb.
That's a title. If somebody calls you, you're like a lamb.
But he's literally a lamb.
It just means that you're innocent. That's what it means. And that's why I'm saying, sacrificing an innocent person, be it a lamb or human, yes, is unjust.
Well,
and pagan.
so you're saying it's unjust to sacrifice an animal for the remission?
No, I'm saying injustice for especially a human being who's completely innocent to be demanded that he gives his blood and his life for the sins of others. If you go to any court of law and there's a judge there and the judge has convicted a murderer, for example, and the judge has got all the evidence to convict this murderer. He's already declared the punishment for him to be the death penalty. Now imagine this. His son, who's completely innocent, he comes and says, I will pay my life for this man because I love him. Would that be just or unjust?
So you're saying, what if the son comes in and pays the price for the person who's convicted?
Is that just or unjust? And which judge will actually allow that? Well, a judge who's sane. Which sane judge will allow that?
Well, if I say it's unjust, wouldn't that make it better?
Say again?
If I say it's unjust, wouldn't that make it better? Because that means...
No, I'm asking you, which sane judge would allow someone innocent to take the life of someone who is guilty of murder and be convicted by the evidence that was present?
Well, what if the person who did that, who came up and took the punishment, was the judge himself?
Even then, is the judge innocent here? Or is the murderer innocent? Who is innocent here?
The murderer is guilty, the judge is innocent, but the judge takes the punishment.
Which sane judge would allow that?
The judge himself.
They won't allow it. No sane judge would do that. From the history of mankind, we don't see any judge doing such a thing. And even if they did, the murderer still murdered the victim. The victim is dead. The victim did not come back to life. That, if it was a God, that would have been better. Do you think God would literally command human beings to target, kill women and children? Like infants, suckling infants. Can you imagine that? What did they do that they have to be destroyed?
Because they attacked his people.
No, infants can't attack.
No, this
infants can't even walk at that age, suckling age. They haven't learned to walk, these children. Maybe later on, they do. But when they are that young,
the thing is that God gave the Amalekites, he gave them several centuries. I believe he gave them around 200, 300 years to repent for what they did, because they attacked the Israelites as they were in the desert and as they were defenseless. And so, but he still showed.
So who was commanded to kill? Who?
So Amalekites first, they wanted to kill the Israelites as they were defenseless.
Yeah, this was like 400 years prior to this command of killing.
And this was when God was trying to fulfill his promise to Abraham of guiding the Israelites.
Then I'm asking you, do you not see the problem here, like God commanding target killing of children at the hands of other men?
Well, the thing is, he did it to his own people, his own Israelites.
Regardless, why would you kill an infant? Aren't infants supposed to be free of sin, innocent?
That's true.
Okay, so what justifies killing infants? I don't understand the logic. And that too, by the way, even the adults who were killed, because this is 1 Samuel 15:3, where he says, go and kill every male, every female, every child, every infant, and the donkeys and the oxen as well. Yes, the animals too. It makes no sense whatsoever. Because like you said, this episode of the Amalekites, killing some Israelites when they came out from the Exodus, 300 to 400 years after that, their children's children are the ones who have been massacred. It's literally like
But he still gave them 300 years.
This is like the genocide of the Amalekites.
But the thing is that God sometimes did it to his own people as well.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
He killed his own Israelites.
No. I'm not talking about killing Israelites. I'm talking about the Amalekites here.
God's the one who had to kill
Okay, so
Israelites.
what justifies, in the case of the Amalekites, the killing of innocent infants and the innocent animals? What justifies that? That too 400 years after. In fact, even killing of the adults is wrong.
So within the context of the scripture, he had to not only set an example, but it's also because the Amalekites...
Bro, what example does it set to kill infants? It sets an example, like, it's like, you know, when I heard that, I was thinking someone like Hitler would give such a command to go and kill the infants deliberately. And you're sitting there, I mean, you're standing here, like, without any remorse. You're just so indoctrinated that for you it's justified to kill an infant, right?
I'm not going to say that I would allow something like that, but this is God. This is
yeah, but how does it justify for the God of the Bible to kill infants and animals who are innocent?
Because within the context of this specific scripture, he's trying to end
the context is, we have already discussed the context. It happened like a few centuries prior to the people who were actually killed. They didn't even exist when this episode of the Amalekites and the Israelites happened during the Exodus. They did not exist. So why are their children's being punished?
I mean, but the thing is, if we want to take it further, then why would God send somebody to hell? That's worse. I mean,
no, God. There's a condition for going to heaven,
we both believe
and there's a condition for going to hell as well.
Yes.
God just doesn't do it randomly. But what justifies this genocide of the people who never existed when the forefathers killed Israelites during the Exodus? What justifies it? Tell me. From what angle do you think it justifies it? It doesn't. It doesn't. You know why you're sticking to the story and being dogmatic about it? It's just because it's in the Bible. Trust me, if this was somewhere else, you would condemn it. The reason you're trying to justify it because you're being dogmatic about it.
I'm not going to say it's good, but
it's not just. Forget about good or bad. It's not just to kill an entire population who didn't exist when the crime took place a few centuries before that. The entire episode shows injustice, not same, maybe a different degree, where you talked about killing of Jesus is justified.
I've seen a lot of Christianity.
What do you mean you've seen a lot? How old are you?
22.
How much have you seen? I mean, look today. Most of the Christian nations today, yes, the fornication, the adultery, even the rapes, even the crimes. They basically lead in all of these statistics out there. These are majority Christian nations. Even the wars, even the manufacture of arms to cause more wars, to cause more suffering, they are basically at the top of the list. How can you say that you have seen all of Christianity and you still think it's good? The reality shows us completely different.
It's not
I'm not saying you don't have good Christian friends and all that. I mean, good people can be found as atheists as well. I've seen a lot of atheists who are very good. Okay? That doesn't mean that their ideology or their religion is correct.
Well, when I say I've seen enough of Christianity to know it exists, it means I've seen...
No, we don't deny it exists. Of course it exists.
Yeah. To know I've seen enough of Jesus.
You haven't seen Jesus. You have not seen Jesus. You have heard about Jesus, what other people wrote. For example, Paul wrote that Jesus is under God's curse. And you're okay with that. I'm surprised actually. I don't think you really love Jesus. It is lip service. Inside you don't love him. Because if you did love him, you would never agree with anyone to make this statement that Jesus is under God's curse. You would never ever accept that or acknowledge that. Because I will not. I love Jesus from the heart. And I know that he wasn't cursed by God because he was one of the righteous men of God. He's actually my prophet, my messenger, and one of the greatest men on earth. Yeah. Yes? Well, and he was the Messiah for us as Muslims.
I wouldn't want God to be put on the cross.
No, I'm saying he's under God's curse.
The thing is that
I'm not talking about him being put on the cross. I'm saying he's under God's curse. If anyone is under God's curse, they are destroyed. You know that, right? If God curses anyone, they are destroyed. They are finito.
He's not cursed. He is the curse itself.
No, he is cursed. Okay, let's read that passage.
Technically, because I put my faith in Jesus Christ, I'm cursed.
You probably missed the point. Read Deuteronomy 21:23. And let's see what it says there. Read Galatians 3:13 first.
Anyone who's put on a tree is cursed.
Yes. For it is written that anyone who's hung on a pole is cursed.
thing is that
But then in Deuteronomy 21, wait. In Deuteronomy 21:23, what does it say? For anyone who hangs on a tree or a pole in some passages, in some translations, for anyone who hangs on a tree or a pole is under God's curse. Whose curse?
God's.
Do you actually believe Jesus is under God's curse?
He is a curse.
Now, I didn't ask if he's a curse. Is he under God's curse? You see why you're reluctant to say that, even though it's clearly mentioned in the Bible? Is because even you can't believe that is true. You have to either reject the Old Testament and reject Paul to conclude that this doesn't apply to Jesus Christ. You see, like the way the Muslims do. We Muslims, besides the Christians, we are the only ones who accept Jesus as the Messiah. Is that true?
Well, actually,
the Jews reject him as Messiah.
I mean, in Buddhism, they actually accept Jesus as a pathway to heaven.
But not as the Messiah.
Yeah, Hinduism as well.
Okay? No way in Hinduism they accept Jesus as a Messiah. Come on, man.
No,
I've studied Hinduism,
I believe not.
and I've not come across anyone, unless someone is trying to be, utilitarian in a way, where they say, yes, we love everyone, all the parts are right, all the parts are
I
true.
could have misread it, but I believe they accept him as a deity.
No, they don't.
I know in
They
Buddhism
don't
do
actually.
accept
No,
him.
they don't. This is false, fake news, like they say. This is false information. All
I know in
right?
Buddhism, at least, they do. They do accept him as a pathway.
Buddhism as a pathway. Look, it's like someone who is a wise person. Yeah, nothing wrong in that. But you don't believe him to be just a wise person. You believe him to be God.
Yes, that's
But then for you to believe that God cursed Jesus, I think that is like the next level. It's like the level of Satan, I would say, because only Satan can utter such words that Jesus is cursed. A righteous being who is chosen by God to be his prophet, messenger, and the Messiah, to bring good news to the world, will never be cursed by God.
What if God cursed himself? And that's essentially what's happening.
Are we really going there now? Have you lowered yourself to such an extent, to such a degree where you saying God curses himself? I mean, come on. I think you have lost. You have now completely disconnected your mind somehow. And I don't mean this as a disrespect, but based on what you just said, it is. I heard as a disbeliever in God. I did not hear a believer in God. I just heard the Satan saying these words to you. That God is cursing himself.
I'm
Come on.
describing how it works. That's
Bro, you're trying. You know what you're trying to do? You're trying to bend over backwards to prove to me that this Bible is true when you know that passage which I quoted cannot apply to Jesus Christ. That God is under God's curse. It cannot apply. And the fact that Paul is actually quoting this as a justification of some sacrifice of Jesus, for which he took the sins upon himself, and he became a curse. Who cursed him? Himself? Seriously? Does it make sense to you?
No, God cursed Jesus.
Is God? But you said Jesus is God.
Yes.
If God curses Jesus, and that's the reason you came to this conclusion that God cursed himself.
But then
Am I right?
Jesus was lifted up to sit at the right hand of God.
Doesn't matter. A curse right hand at the God doesn't make sense. He's cursed, right? He's under God's curse.
Yes. But then by believing in Jesus, then we're bringing that on to ourselves.
Why would you believe in a cursed person? Would you believe in the Satan who's cursed by God? Why should I believe in Jesus then? That's it. That's the end of your...
Because in Isaiah and Jeremiah,
Bro, no matter how many hoops you want to jump in now, you cannot undo what you just said, that God cursed himself.
But Jesus is the Messiah, though. That's the thing. I mean, it was prophesied.
Look, anyone who says that God would curse himself doesn't understand God.
Who says God can't do that?
So you're saying God can do whatever he wants?
Yes, as long as it's within the law that he wrote.
Where in the law does it say God can be cursed by himself? You made up that from Satan. It's not from God, it's from Satan, what he just said.
No, God can do it because it's not within the law that says he can't do it. That's the thing.
Okay. Can God lie?
No, he can't lie.
Why? Why? He can do anything, right?
Well, he can lie. He chooses not to. That's the thing.
Oh, he can lie? Where do you say that in the law? Again, you're speculating about God. You're going from bad to worse. From the fire pan into the fire. Sorry, the frying pan into the fire.
No, the reason why I say that is because in the New Testament it says God is not the God of confusion.
But you are confused, looks like. You're literally cursing God now.
That's
how confused you are.
So,
I'm sorry to say this, You have confused yourself to such a degree that you're even accepting that God cursed himself. That's how bad the confusion is. And that actually proves to us that those words cannot be from God, because you rightly said God is not the author of confusion. The fact that you're confused proves to us that this cannot be from God. And that is, I think
no, that's the thing. I'm not God.
I didn't say you were. I didn't say you were God. Okay? But the fact that you actually have no problem saying these words, that God cursed himself, shows to me that you're not only confused, but unfortunately, it seems like you're deluded to such an extent where you want God to curse himself. God curses the wicked. God curses the ones who are sinners. God curses the liars.
Or if they're hung on a tree, which is what the law says.
That's himself, right? It's still going from bad to worse, like I said.
And Jesus himself, he does say, whoever does my will does the will of the Father in heaven.
Yeah, but when you do the will of Jesus, Jesus himself does the will of the Father, right?
Yes.
So that's what, you know what that actually is, what that translates to? You know, how do you translate the word Muslim?
How do you translate it?
So Muslim is an Arabic word. It means one who submits his will to Almighty God. And that's exactly what he said about Jesus. He submits his will all the time to his God.
Yes.
Do you know that's his God, right? The Father. Are you aware of that? That's his God. Does God have a God?
No, because he is God.
No, but does God have a God?
No, because he is God.
I didn't ask you if he was God. Does God have a God?
No.
There you go. But Jesus did, right? That disqualifies him as God.
Because he's in the flesh. He joined us. He's God.
No, when he was in flesh, he was fully God, according to Paul. Yes? He's fully God, according to Paul. So, if God cannot have a God, unless you're a polytheist, yeah? Being monotheist, you cannot say that God has a God, because he is the ultimate authority and there's no one higher than him. Hence, he cannot have a God himself. The fact Jesus had a God to whom he worshipped and he prayed and he bowed down to and he prostrated on his face on the ground proves to us that Jesus clearly showed us that he had a God and that he worshipped to him and he prayed only to him, not the Trinity. The pre-planned killing of an innocent man itself is unjust. We have been through this many times. But you know, if you can justify God cursing himself, I suppose you'll justify anything. Even the most absurd things you will justify. Just because, like I said, you follow it dogmatically rather than using the mind and the reasoning which God tells you to do so in the Bible, isn't it? He says to love your God with all your heart and with all your
soul, all your mind.
And with all your mind.
Yes, that's correct.
So use it, please.
And that satisfies the law itself.
Yes, but you're not using the mind. You're saying God can curse himself. That's not using the mind. That is listening to the Satan.
That's a law being fulfilled.
Yeah.
I'm describing it within the context of the law.
No, I'm saying within the context of law, God doesn't curse himself. I don't know where you got that from. But anyway, I think it's been a long discussion. Maybe ponder on what we discuss. So we're going to post this on the DawahWise channel. Have a look and hopefully you will, reflect on it. Hopefully, yeah. Because at the end of the day, look, if you value the truth, then you accept it and acknowledge it. But if you see something which is not the truth, then you reject it, right? And this can only be done if you are looking at things with an open mind and a sincere heart. Very important. So if you don't do that, then what's the point of you seeking the truth when you will stick to a dogma no matter what, whether it's the truth or the falsehood? Just because your parents or your family or your community are Christians doesn't mean you have to. Look at the truth, because that is what matters at the end of the day. It is not where you're born, because on the day of judgment, God's not going to ask you about everything else. He's going to ask you about yourself. But if you have been following like a sheep just based on your community or society, then God will then question you. Why did you not use the faculty of reasoning I gave you? And why did you not come to the conclusion based on that rather than based on emotions? Yeah? So please bear that in mind. You're still young. You've got a lot of reading to do, a lot of pondering to do. Yes, so do I, because learning is from cradle to grave. So we all have to. But we have to do it with sincerity. Okay? Anyway, what's your name?
My name is Jason. Jason.
Jason?
Yes.
I thought you said Jesus. Maybe we've been discussing Jesus so long. Right. No problem. Take care, Jesus. Jason, my name is Hashim. All right? You take care.